sorry I'm so flustered. Just waiting for our Back to the Future episode to start, like it is now. Oh, hi! Welcome to our Back to the Future episode. That's just a weather experiment. For science! Ominous. You know, if you've never heard of Back to the Future before, then the idea of a time-traveling Irish sports car ferrying a slacker teen back to the 1950s so that he can get his parents together again, but for the first time, so that he doesn't disappear, so that he can play Johnny Be Good at high school prom, it might sound a little peculiar. The idea all started when writer Bob Gale was searching through his parents' basement and found an old high school yearbook. It showed that his father had been a class president. Realizing that he had no connection whatsoever to the class president of his own high school, he began to wonder about whether or not he and his father would have been friends if they'd met at the same age. The idea intrigued him, so he put it to his friend and director, Robert Zemeckis. He began to wonder the same thing. What were his own parents like at that age? And thus, Back to the Future was born. And now, 30 years later, the fan base for these films has only continued to grow. So, let's fire up our flux capacitors and travel back in time with a very special Fandom Workshop guest, Jeffrey Weissman.
I brought pizza for everyone.
Oh, who's gonna eat all that?
Oh, I will.
Mom, I can't let him
think I'm chicken. You're right. Well, you're right.
We're here with the incredibly handsome Jeffrey Weissman from Back to the Future 2 and 3. Now, Jeffrey, you've had the honor and distinction of working opposite Michael J. Fox in a wig, playing his own daughter while hanging upside down in a mountain of old age makeup.
Yes.
You're a man who likes a good challenge.
Yes.
I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10.
What's orange and shaped like a pumpkin?
My God.
Marlene's butt. If you remember my entrance in the McFly household of 2015, I came up with the line, "How's Grandpa's little pumpkin?" And it's because my head was hanging at the same level of his hot pants, which were stuffed and looked like a pumpkin. And there you have it.
And that's not even a number, but it's exactly what I was thinking.
Elvin, you're amazing.
That's not even my name. Now, Jeffrey, you were phenomenal. Taking over in the part of George McFly for Back to the Future 2 and 3.
The work for me was made pretty easy because Crispin laid down, well, first of all, Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis laid down a really great character in the script, and Crispin developed it. He had a lot of time shooting with Eric Stoltz for 8 weeks, and then shooting and rehearsing with Tom Wilson and others, doing makeup tests, so on and so forth, which I got luckily enough access to study. And his offbeat work was just fantastic. And so I really, of course, had big shoes to fill, but the groundwork had been done for me.
And that's wonderful. Now, when 2 had come out, it was several years after the first one. I think it was 4 or 5 years before or after the first film was released.
Yeah.
And you actually had a chance to actually become a fan of the film before getting involved with the project.
Yeah. In '83, I think it was, I actually did a film at the American Film Institute with Dan O'Hurley and Crispin Glover, and I was intrigued by his work. I thought he was incredibly offbeat and really interesting, and stayed in touch. And then when the first film came out, I was like, hey, I know that guy. Wow, he's doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
Along with the rest of the cast, it was really impressive. And then it became the highest grossing film of '85. The next
Rightly
year,
so.
yes, and the next year I got cast by Stan Dragoti in a Cherry Coke commercial that was a takeoff on Back to the Future, in which I played a greaser.
Yeah.
I think you can find it on YouTube.
Ooh.
And so I had this nice connection to the film because I actually worked with at least someone who was in it and loved the other performers in it. And then in 88-ish, got a call from an agent who asked if I knew who Crispin was. And I was like, sure, what's up? And are you about the same height and weight? And I was like, yeah, no. He's taller.
He's a lanky man.
He's heavier. Well, yeah, that's probably the similarity ends there. And I said, what is this to be? He said they were looking for a stand-in pretty much for him on a project. I said, for the Back to the Future sequel? And he says, I'm not at liberty to say.
Okay. Now, I was curious, now there is long stretches where you were being held upside down.
Yes.
How long would they have you upside down at any one given moment in time before like writing you up to, correct the blood in your head?
Basically for the time it would take for a take, and most takes were not more than a minute or two, but they didn't want to get me down. ILM had this very complicated track going from the front door and through the living room and into the kitchen that I wrote on that ortho-lev of the future.
Yeah.
And they had built a ladder. Zemeckis didn't want to get me down all the time because it's very expensive, long hours shoot.
Yeah.
So they built a board on a ladder that I could just, lean up. They'd put it under me and I'd lean back. And then as everyone else went to get coffee and they'd look at the playback, I would just be there twiddling my thumbs on my back. I have a photo of it somewhere, of that contraption. I have a photo too here of my hang-in.
Okay.
You'll notice the nice placement of the coffee cup. We'll do a cutaway so you can
take a look at that.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
We're looking at it right now.
Are we?
Yep. Look at.
Wasn't that fascinating?
Unless they decide to not edit it in
Let's look
and
at
make
some
us
of
look
these other
like
pictures.
fools.
You want to see some of these other behind-the-scenes photos? Should
Yeah.
we look at those now?
Yeah, let's look at those
so
right
this
now.
one here, you see me in the body cast, where they put the costume on around the body cast. Out of the back of the body cast in the costume, a pole came that went through the set that had a wheel attached to it that when Lorraine gets the hydrated 4-second pizza out of the oven and says, George, rotate your axis for dinner. And I go, okay, 4. and I get to eat pizza right side up. That didn't work. The body cast either didn't look right, it was too bulky, or it didn't fit. The editors decided not to use it. You can see it in the bonus material.
Oh, cool.
But this is a rare shot from that. Photos I got now are just spectacular. Look at these color shots.
We're looking at them right now. Again, unless they don't get edited, in which case I look like a fool.
No, you look great, foolish or not.
Now, Jeffrey, back to
Now, Elton.
that's not even my name again. It's been a while since the films originally came out.
I think.
We've had some aesthetic advancements in car design. If you had to choose any vehicle to be a time machine, what would you choose?
Well, I kind of felt like the feel of the new Tesla.
Oh, you see a Tesla time machine.
Yeah, now all the DeLorean owners out there that I'm friends with are going to hate me now. No, but
Well, it's timeless. Like, let's be honest. Like, the DeLorean will always be the time machine.
Yeah, DeLorean owners are just so wonderful. In fact, at the last convention we had in Dayton, Ohio, I was a guest there, and a high school came in and performed a 20-minute musical version of Back to the Future for Bob Gale and Chris Lloyd and Leah Thompson. Who else was there? Harry Waters Jr., who played Marvin Berry, and Don Fullilove, Goldie Wilson, myself, Claudia Wells, who were there. It was remarkable. It was so sweet. There wasn't a dry eye in the house.
Oh, that is wonderful.
They were wonderful.
Absolute sweet.
You can find that on YouTube.
Oh, very cool.
Something that I'm very proud of is this. Let's cut away to this slide here
We'll hold up
of what we're
pictures,
holding.
and then we'll also cut away to pictures of it.
This is a little dream project my wife and I came up with. Kimball and I thought, there's this cast that, and really the world love Michael J. Fox. And what better way to give back but to try to get the cast and crew members that are available to come on a cruise. They have fan cruises for Star Trek and Doctor Who and so on and so forth. Why isn't there a Back to the Future one? So we're launching one next November out of Fort Lauderdale on Royal Caribbean's Oasis of the Sea. It's like a floating city. And we're going to go out of Fort Lauderdale to a private island off Haiti and to Jamaica and Cozumel. And I've got about a dozen of the cast and crew members. Dean Cundy, the cinematographer who shot Jurassic Park and other great films, as well as Frances Lee McCain, who played Lorraine's mom, and Darlene Vogel and Ricky Dean Logan, who were in Griff's gang in part 2, on the hoverboards. We're hoping that we'll have some announcements. Hopefully Michael will come join us, and Chris, and Leah doesn't do cruises, unfortunately. Anyway, announcements as we go and grow. So.
Wonderful. And hopefully it won't be a 3-hour tour. Be a little bit.
No, it's going to be a 7-day trip. Ooh. And look us up at bttfcruise.com and cruise10parkinsons.com, because all the proceeds, after our expenses, are going to the Parkinson's Foundation.
Supporting Team Fox.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Again, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
My pleasure.
Portions of Fandom Workshop are brought to you by ThinkGeek.com. Join in, geek out.
One of the greatest things about Back to the Future is how it continues to inspire people to this day. And thanks to science inspired by science fiction, we're beginning to see some of the depictions of the future that these 1980s films gave us brought to life. Back in 2011, Nike auctioned off a limited edition run of the future shoes that Marty McFly wore in Back to the Future Part 2 to help raise money for the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. Now, Nike's even planning to take it one step further, and they're going to be releasing a fully functional auto-lacing replica shoe by the later part of 2015. And those folks over at Arcs Packs and Team Hendo have completed their first working hoverboard. And Tony Hawk rode one, so you know it's good. Now, we may still be a few years off from zipping around on them ourselves, so I'm going to show you how to bring just a little bit of the future to your table without having to rehydrate a takeout pizza. Get it? Because it's a joke from the movie. Now you may be asking yourself, how does someone create such a beautiful, functionally hovering replica of the Back to the Future hoverboard? Do you use ancient, dark, sinister, twisted magics? For argument's sake, let's say that's not how I did it, and instead used a variety of easy-to-work-with materials, starting with 1/8 inch foamed PVC board. Now, I got this foamed PVC board at a local Tap Plastics. If you don't have a Tap Plastics nearby, you can also order from them online. But what you're looking for specifically is foamed PVC board, because it's easy to work with, it's easy to cut and shape using a razor craft knife and a heat gun. I started by cutting out the basic shape of the hoverboard using the craft knife, and then rounded out the front, back, and sides using my Dremel rotary tool and a sanding bit. Once I had all that together, I just needed to create the little curve here in the back for the kick plate. To do that, I used a heat gun on the back end here until it was soft and manageable, and pressed it firmly against the table at an angle until I finally got that nice curve I was looking for. Afterwards, I painted around the edges and added the art with the help of my good friend and amazing graphic designer, Matt Cadigan. Now, we're going to have this art up available online so you too can create your own Fandom Workshop hoverboard. And we wanted to go ahead and keep the top, bottom, foot pad, and hovering mechanisms here separate so that you can use them if you would like, or create your own. I created this foot pad here out of colored EVA craft foam, and then made these hovering discs here using 1/16 inch foamed PVC board. After that came the fun part, actually making it hover. To do that, we had some help from our good friends at Fascinations.com. They sent over their Levitron Revolution hovering display base. So I routed out a hole here in the middle of the bottom of the hoverboard, perfectly sized to fit their display magnet, and then we lower it gently over the laser stabilized electromagnet base, and we finally have our functionally hovering Back to the Future hoverboard. And crumbs and carrots, it is beautiful to behold, with my eyes as well as my heart, which there is a song in. And that song goes da 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 da. That's the one. Hoverboard. Set the Wayback Machine for coming up right after this commercial break. We're fortunate enough to be sitting down with Stephen Wynn, CEO of DeLorean Motor Company. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you guys for coming by.
And I wanted to start by asking you, obviously, you are a fan of the DeLorean motor car. How was it that you came to be CEO of DMC?
Well, I started back with DeLoreans in 1981, actually, just as a English and French car mechanic that specialized in English and French cars. And I was based here in LA, in the San Fernando Valley. And obviously, in the day, there were a lot of DeLoreans sold in the LA area. And as the company got into its financial troubles and just getting themselves going, there was a real severe problem for people to have correct service done on the cars. And then obviously, as the company got involved, it got into its financial difficulties, it was more and more difficult to have service performed on the cars. And as an independent, it just mushroomed from that point on. At one stage in, say, '84, we probably had 50 or 60 cars in our possession that we were servicing and restoring. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and the business has sort of taken me along for the ride.
Yeah, and you guys have obviously turned it into a wonderful family company.
Oh yes,
and we love that.
Yes. We are a family business. Obviously, I'm the CEO. Cameron, my son, he's the manager of this office. Danny Botkin, who's our service manager here. He's been with the company for many, many years and is like family to us as well. And that's the way we do things.
Wonderful. And we're excited to get to talk to them a little bit as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
We're here with Danny Botkin from DeLorean Motor Company. And now you're telling us that, you've loved the car for years, but back in 2001, Universal approached you to work on the potential DeLorean for Back to the Future 4.
That was the reason why they wanted to bring it to us. The car's been sitting on the back lot, rotting away for years. They wanted a good, dependable car they can rely on, and the rumor was at the time that they were going to shoot Part 4.
Yeah. Now, over the years, the vehicle had fallen into disrepair, and you're telling me that people had liberated some of the original Time Machine parts from it.
Unfortunately so.
Yeah.
A lot of parts were stolen off the original car. The flux capacitors, was stolen out of it. Time circuit's been stolen, everything.
Yeah.
Mr. Fusion was the big one. They couldn't keep a Mr. Fusion on that thing in the back lot.
I imagine. So iconic, and then just right there for the reaching.
Exactly.
Ever since 2001, you've been working in some capacity, either restoring the stock cars, the stock DeLoreans, or doing the time machine conversions, which you've been doing here at DMC.
Correct. Yeah. So far, I've just finished up my 8th one. Working on 3 more right now. So there's a lot of interest in doing it, especially with the DeLorean owners that, back in the day when the DeLorean came out, we were all little kids. You know? And God, we all thought, no way we're going to be able to get one of these things. And now you can. Now I can build you a movie car, and
which is wonderful. And I wanted to ask, while we're here, do you happen to maybe, have a fully converted time machine around?
It is a distinct possibility if we look around here closely.
All right, so we're actually in a DeLorean. Now, Danny, how does one turn on a time machine?
You turn on the time circuits here.
Ooh. Yes! Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Now, what goes into the actual conversion of a stock DeLorean into the time machine?
The first most hardest part is actually collecting all the parts. And I spend more time collecting and building all the parts than I do actually putting them on the car, because you want accuracy, you want everything just like the movie.
Yeah, so you have the difference between the more found object parts and then the ones that are custom made. I think you were telling me that the time circuit here, that's usually a custom made piece.
Correct.
And then what are some of the found objects that you look for?
Some of the found objects, gauges for the plutonium gauges, the little speedometer up here, the little Radio Shack box you can still get, the boxes up here on the dash, honestly everything, because you can't find these parts anymore. They're all the scrap yards and everything. Every Back to the Future fan is basically raped.
they've already just gutted them all out and got all the pieces they needed then.
Correct.
All right, now so this is a show ready piece. What kind of special effects go into making the time machine a show-ready piece?
The first most important part, the time circuits. These are functional time circuits. You can actually program in your destination time.
Perfect.
This the center part will keep real time. And when you add in another destination time, the old time goes down to the last time departed. So it gives you a little effect.
And that's when you go to 80 miles an hour, and we will actually physically travel through time.
Okay. And then there's a flux capacitor back here.
Powered by the plutonium.
Electrical. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But just every little part has to be done in strict detail, putting it together. I mean, I believe every part in the car is important.
Yes. I mean, you've taken such care in replicating everything, down to the fonts and everything on these individual labels. It's absolutely breathtaking to be a part of. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about specifically was the flux capacitor back here. Now, you make all of your flux capacitors, and what goes into building one of those?
Basically, a lot of it is a cast resin parts. I actually have another, we used to do a bunch of these things ourselves. I have a gentleman right now in Arizona that does these for me. You can actually get these boxes still from Granger.
Oh, wonderful.
Warehouse locally that everybody has.
Yeah.
Most all the parts for a flux are still available. These little glass tubes here, they were actually vacuum tubes, real glass vacuum tubes.
The original ones.
Original ones. And I do have kind of a special set that I set aside for myself.
Yeah.
But those are one of those impossible parts to find anymore.
Got it. So now you're still able to use kind of the original box. It's the same thing they used before. But the tubes, what are you using now?
Right now they're a cast resin
Okay.
tube, and we put the LED lights in them and make them do it. They got a little sound now that you can go into and turn on sound. And
There we go.
so they're quite special. And again, probably the most looked at, and everybody asks you where your flux capacitor is.
Of course. I mean, this entire thing wouldn't run unless somebody got hit on the head and thought up the flux capacitor.
That's right. That's what
Perfect.
makes time travel possible.
Wonderful. Now, let's go ahead and travel through time.
Let's go.
Thank you so much for watching. We had an amazing time here at the DeLorean Motor Company. I want to thank all our special guests, but it's time for us to go. And where we're going, we don't need roads. Yeah!